So we left off the last time on currency risk. So foreign exchange, sorry you can't see the foreign right there, but foreign exchange is all forms of internationally traded monetary supplies, including currencies, bank deposits, checks, electronic transfers. Everything that has to do with money is the foreign exchange. The foreign exchange market is people buying and selling that money. Buying and selling that money. Like, for instance, if you are a speculator in the foreign exchange market, what you would say is, okay, I think the euro tomorrow is going to go down. Therefore, tomorrow I am going to buy euros because they're going to go down. I'm going to wait then until euro goes up, and then I'm going to sell them and make more money. So it's basically, if you think about the foreign exchange market, you're buying and selling currencies just like you would buy and sell a stock. You obviously buy a stock, which you should buy a stock right now, by the way, but you would obviously buy a stock when the stock is low and sell it when it's high. It's the same thing with currency. If you think that the Australian dollar is going to fall, then you wait till it falls and you buy it. If you think it's going to then go up, once it goes up, you sell it. That is your foreign exchange markets. Now, exchange rates over time, they're going to fluctuate. They can go way up, they can go down. There's a lot of things that happens with exchange rates, which makes a currency either stronger or a currency either weaker. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. It's critical that you guys understand what happens when foreign exchange rates go up and when foreign exchange rates go down. So here's an example versus the dollar. Suppose last year the exchange rate was 1-to-1. It's never been 1-to-1, but fictitiously, let's just think about, because right now it's 109-to-1. But anyways, let's just think about it that it's 1-to-1. The dollar got stronger, and so it's 1-to-1. Now, suppose the rate goes from 1-to-1 to 150-to-1. That means the dollar gets a lot stronger. In other words, before it was €1 would buy $1. Now you've got to pay $1.50 euros to buy $1. So the dollar got way stronger, which also means that $0.67 would buy, or 67 cents would buy €1. So let's say that again. Suppose it was 1-to-1. And then all of a sudden the dollar gets stronger, and now it goes to €1.50 to $1, which means the dollar got stronger, the euro got weaker. That also means that €1 used to be $1 would buy €1, or €1 would buy $1. Now €1 will only buy 67 cents. I hope you got it. So far, you got to have that. What is the effect on this change with Europeans? Well, the Europeans now, because the dollar got stronger and their euro got weaker, they would pay more for imports. So the higher cost reduces profitability. So now there's higher prices throughout Europe. All the prices in Europe just gone up because their euro got weaker. European firms have to increase their exports to the US because now the US dollar is stronger. We're going to buy more stuff from Europe, and they can raise their prices to the US. So increased exports to the US leads to higher revenues to the European firms, but the European consumers lose. Why do the European consumers lose? Because imports got very, very expensive. Whenever you reduce the supply, imports being supply, whenever you reduce the supply of goods to the consumers, they have less opportunity for lower prices and higher quality, so they lose. So when the dollar gets stronger and the euro gets weaker, consumers lose. Firms win and the government wins because the government now has a positive balance of trade. They're exporting more than they're importing. The firms are winning because now they can make all they want and export it to other countries, but consumers lose. The people lose because imports are way more expensive. And now, when they used to be buying that good California wine, they can't buy it anymore. Or when they were buying American electronics, they can't buy it anymore because now their euro just got weaker. You need to understand that. I'm going to show you more examples, but here's the key thing that you need to understand. If the US dollar gets stronger, that means that it was 1-to-1, just like in the last example, and now it's 1-to-150. If the dollar gets stronger, exports go down because our goods are more expensive and imports go up. So we have a negative balance of trade. So if our dollar gets stronger, our dollar goes further in other countries, and now we are importing more. If the dollar gets weaker, if the dollar was 1-to-1, and now the dollar's 150-to-1, which is just opposite the last example I gave you, exports go up because our goods are less expensive, and imports go way down because the dollar doesn't buy as much. You need to understand that. If the dollar gets stronger, which means that we can buy more euros with our dollar, exports are going to go down because our goods are more expensive because our dollar went up, and imports are going to go up because our dollar goes further. If our dollar gets weaker, which means we have to pay more for euros, exports go up because our goods are less expensive, but imports go down because our dollar doesn't buy nearly as much. Understand this slide. This is the basis of everything else we're going to talk about in this chapter. Understand this slide. Now, the reason that the dollar would get weaker, the dollar gets weaker when it takes more dollars to buy euros. The reason that the dollar would get weaker is because inflation goes up. So if inflation in the United States goes up, the dollar gets weaker. If unemployment goes up in the US, the dollar gets weaker. If the stock market goes down against other markets, then the dollar gets weaker. The thing about it is the dollar has not gotten weaker lately, even though the stock market has gone way down, because other markets have gone down too. If the stock market goes down and other markets don't go down, like the European markets or the Chinese markets, then the dollar doesn't get weaker. But if we get weaker against those, or if the stock market goes down against those, then the dollar gets weaker. If Federal Reserve prints more money, there's more money in circulation, the dollar gets weaker. If there's an American crisis, like a terrorist attack, say after 9/11, the dollar gets way weaker because people lose confidence in our country. It's all speculation. If GDP goes down, the dollar gets weaker. And anytime anybody loses confidence in the government or what's going on in our country, the dollar gets weaker. For instance, if Trump does something and people lose confidence, or Trump does something and we think we're going to get into war or what have you, the dollar gets weaker. And folks, if the dollar gets weaker, consumers lose. When the dollar gets weaker, consumers lose because our imports become very, very, very expensive, which means you have to only buy domestically. And that means it cuts down on your choices. It cuts down on a lot of things, and your money doesn't go as far. When the dollar gets weaker, it's like you were making $10 an hour before, the dollar just got weaker, and now you're making $9 an hour. You are poorer because the dollar gets weaker. So when the dollar gets weaker, consumers lose. Now, when the dollar gets stronger, consumers win. Inflation and the dollar gets stronger because inflation goes down. Right now, the dollar is as strong as it's been in a long time because inflation is down and unemployment is down. If the stock market goes up, which it has been going up for since 2008 until 3 weeks ago, the dollar gets stronger. When Federal Reserve buys money or takes money out of circulation, they're reducing the supply of money. The dollar gets stronger. When America is at peace, there's no terrorist attacks, nothing happens, the dollar gets stronger. If GDP goes up, dollar gets stronger, and any time people gain confidence in the government, the dollar gets stronger. When the dollar gets stronger, folks, people are better off. Consumers win. Consumers win. The balance of trade loses because we import more than we export, but consumers win. It's like you are making $10 an hour, and now you just made $11 an hour. So, in a free market, the price of any currency is based on supply and demand. The greater the supply of currency, the lower the price. The greater the demand of currency, the higher the price. It basically floats. It's like a stock. In the short term, it's all speculation. What do you think is going to happen? In the long term, it's all GDP, unemployment, stock market, inflation, and all those types of things. Our dollar is like a stock. If you have confidence in the management of GE, if you think that the management of GE is going to do well, you're going to buy GE stock, and the stock is going to go up. If you have confidence in the U.S. government, people are going to invest in the United States. GDP is going to go up, the dollar is going to go up. It's all about fluctuation. In short term, it's speculation. In the long term, it's what we would call metrics, things like GDP and that type of thing. So again, you've seen supply and demand curves since you were in probably 10th grade, because I remember my first one I saw in global, and that was in 9th grade, actually. So you've seen supply and demand curves ad nauseum. That's just a supply and demand curve for the euro. So factors that influence the supply and demand for a currency is economic growth, just I talk about, GDP, if people have confidence in the government. Market psychology down here means that people think that the government is doing well. They think that things are going well in the United States. So in the short term, it's all speculation. Inflation, if inflation goes up, then the dollar gets weaker because it's based on a basket of goods. Hyperinflation means that their currency loses value every single day, which means prices are going up exponentially and nobody uses the currency anymore. Interest rates and inflations are positively related. So if inflation goes up, interest rates go up. If interest rates go up, the stock market go down. And I just told you, if the stock market goes down, then the dollar gets weaker. So interest rates and inflation are positively related. If interest rates and inflation goes up, the dollar gets weaker. That's going to do it for part 2. I will come back and we'll finish up with part 3.